If you've ever looked at a map, you're certainly familiar with the idea of a scale. Maps, obviously, by necessity, have to be much smaller than reality, and so we use a scale. This one is a scale map of something that includes the Ramsey Cascades Trail, which it says is about 1 1/8 inches long on a map with a scale of 3 inches equal to 10 miles. What is the actual length of the trail? So again, we're going to set up a proportion. The two things that we're measuring here are inches and miles. And so those are the two units we're going to have in our ratios. You can do inches over miles or miles over inches. It does not matter as long as it's the same for both ratios. So I'm going to write inches over miles just to remind myself as I'm writing these ratios that inches is going to go on the top and miles is going to go on the bottom. And my first ratio is going to come from the scale on the map, 3 inches and 10 miles. So my first ratio will be 3 inches over 10 miles. My next ratio is going to come from the information that the problem's asking for. 1 1/8 inches is how many actual miles. So 1 1/8 inches is how many actual miles. I'm going to use m as my variable for miles, and that's going to be my proportion. Okay, great. So I'm going to go ahead and cross multiply. So let's do 3 times m, which is going to give me 3m. And then for my other ratio, I'm going to do 10 multiplied by 1 and 1/8. So 10 multiplied by 1 and 1/8. So 10 multiplied by 1 and 1/8 is not the sort of problem that fills my heart with joy just because it is a mixed number. The way that we could do this with the distributive property is 10 times 1 plus 1/8. That would give us the answer. We could also do 10 times, and then we could do 9/8. We could turn that into a improper fraction. Sorry, an improper fraction. Don't sick the English teachers on me. An improper fraction. Either one of those will work for us just fine. I sort of prefer the improper fraction. That's the way I prefer to do things. I just think it's easier. This 10 times 9/8 is just 90/8. To me, that's a little easier to deal with. So I'm going to do it that way, but you can do the distributive property version if you like. So 3m equals 90/8. Now, here's where it gets a little tricky. I'm going to divide by 3, which means I need to do 90/8 divided by 3. Well, doing a fraction divided by something can be a little tricky, but remember that dividing by 3 is the same thing as multiplying by 1/3. Okay, dividing by 3 is the same thing as multiplying by 1/3. Those are the same operation. Okay, and this is the I guess how you think of, depending on how you think of it, I'm going to call it the multiplication property of equality. You could call it the division property of equality too, if you like, because we're kind of doing both. Okay, so 3m divided by 3 is going to be m. 90/8 times 1/3, let's go ahead and do this the long way. 90 times 1 is 90, and 8 times 3 is 24. And then we need to reduce this fraction. We need to reduce 90 over 24. Now, I don't know the way you were taught to reduce fractions, but I sort of just taught pick the biggest thing you can comfortably divide by. So like I know 90 and 24 can both be divided by 3. So I was taught divide by 3 and then see if you can still keep dividing. So 90 divided by 3 is 30 and 24 divided by 3 is 8. And then both of those are even numbers. So I know I can divide both of them by 2. Okay, so that's going to give me 15 over 4. And I don't think there's anything I can divide 15 over 4 by. So there's a couple of different ways we can write this answer. You could say it's 15/4 miles, but that's kind of a weird way to say something. If somebody said, "Hey, how long is this trail?" and you said 15/4 miles, that's a weird way to write it. So I think it might be better just from a purely English point of view to turn this back into a mixed number, which would be 3 3/4. But if you like fractions, like if you did 15 divided by 4 on a calculator, it would give you 3.75. So we could say the trail is three, oops, 3.75 miles long, or 3 and 3/4. If you said the trail is 15/4 miles long, that's one of those answers that's like technically correct, but super weird. If somebody said, "How long is the trail?" and you said 15/4 miles, they would give you a weird look. It's definitely better to say 3 and 3/4, or probably most normal would be 3.75 miles long.